Time for the workbench here on the Undercut, and this kind of connects back to what we've already talked about on the show. Let's have a look at this through a bit of a different lens. The theme is, gents, that the changing of the guard that we've referred to at the start of the show, with all these young drivers coming into supercars, is creating a personality drain on the top of the sport. Now, you take out some of those big names, established faces, resumes that have got a lot on them, and replace them with guys who haven't yet got resumes. Are we in an interesting issue here where who's responsible, I guess, for what comes next? Is this in the hands of supercars to build the new stars, the drivers themselves to take matters into their own hands, the media, the teams? Who's got a bigger role to play in all this to help this next wave make their way through? Because we don't cut through generally as a sport into the mainstream, and we've just taken a few more names that people might recognise and replace them with some that they definitely will not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's everyone needs to, not rise to the occasion, but do something, whether it be the drivers, the teams, the sport, the TV networks, whatever it may be, because I couldn't name one A-League soccer player. Not one.
I was going to use rugby union as my other example too. I can't name one.
Exactly, and we just can't afford that in our game because we've had so many household names, whether it be, Alan Moffat, Dick Johnson, Peter Brock, and sort of the last of those names hanging on is Craig Lowndes. So what's changed? I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on one thing, but I think the biggest thing people used to watch is obviously our rivalries between the brands, and then the heroes and the villains came from that. So that's obviously a particular thing, and the teams and drivers always switch around. But we've got a great opportunity now for Toyota to come in, cement their brand with their driver in Chaz Mostert, who's already done a great job of promoting himself. But James Courtney probably bought 2 or 3 extra years of full-time driving just because he had a bit of personality.
True.
Because they wanted to wheel someone out. James Courtney could take his shirt off down the beach to do something, whereas some of the other guys need to think, not that James Courtney's perfect, but what can I do to be the next version of that, right?
And the interesting element is we're now in a time where drivers have, at no time in the history of the world or media, they have the audience literally in their pocket. They've just got to be able to do something to connect with them. Whereas back in the day, you needed to get an opportunity because a TV producer needed to go, yes, you're an interesting story. We'll put you on our TV show, or we'll feature you, or we'll do something here. Today, you can do that yourself. So the onus, I think, in some ways, and I agree with you, everyone's got a role to play. The opportunity's here for the drivers, for the ones who are cluey enough to figure this out and how to do it best. Whether it's doing podcasts, which some guys are doing, whether it's just doing content and working with their team more, or their manufacturer or their sponsors, the opportunity's there. And I reckon that the drivers have to be the savvy ones to really grab it. And the ones who do will do it really well. And the ones who don't, in a year or two's time, they'll get replaced by somebody else who comes along, because it's going to be hard for any of them to step in and instantly get results in year 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think, but Jack touched on it there a moment ago. I think fundamentally the sport was built off a rivalry between Holden and Ford.
Yep. And that's gone. That's gone.
So you had your household names, and Jack referred to a couple. He failed to mention his own father, Larry.
Sorry,
in that group of household names, but they created what we see today. And it was built off the rivalry. You're either blue on the Ford camp, red the Holden camp, and then I feel like probably when Jack and I were young growing up, early or late 90s, early 2000s, you had those personalities. So it's all right to say that they were personalities like your Greg Murphys, Russell Ingles, Mark Scapes, Ambrose. They were personalities, but there was also the on-track rivalries.
Yeah.
Like Murph and Ambrose, whether they did or not, it was perceived like they hated each other.
They did.
And
I can guarantee you they did.
Absolutely hated each other, and it was a rivalry on track that boiled over off track on many occasions. Russell Ingall, like he was the villain for. His nickname was the Enforcer.
So does someone need to take the black hat and say, this is mine, I'm going to be the bad guy and I don't care what anyone says or does? I'm going to put this thing on, and I don't care.
Well, I think rightly or wrongly, probably in my dad's era against Brock was, the fan favourite, and Alan probably had the black hat, was given the black hat, rightly or wrongly. So I don't necessarily think a driver just will stick his hand up and say, oh, right, I want to wear the black hat. It's probably a media thing that probably creates
So we
that.
have to be the bad guys. Is that what you're saying?
Just
here?
you, Noonan.
Oh, just
actually.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just the worst guy. Just the worst guy.
Well, you already buried Chaz Moffat.
Oh, I was
You may as
waiting
well
for
keep
that. I
going.
was waiting for that.
There's no simple answer.
No,
Right?
there's not.
But there's a couple of guys to me that I've, having worked in the media and driven and hang out with them, whatever. Will Brown, Ryan Wood. There are a couple of guys I look straight away.
Larrikins, aren't they?
Yeah, larrikins, characters. Now, apparently, at the top 10 shootout, a particular driver was driving down pit lane going out for their lap, and they'd said something to Ryan Wood, tongue-in-cheek, a couple of late races earlier. So Ryan Wood's hanging off the fence, making a joke to him about what he said. No one picked up on it. I didn't see it. And we're wheeling out footage from 20 years ago of Greg Murphy having a scrap with Ambrose. Why isn't anyone doing it now? I know that it's not what we want to show kids, and there's rules and there's fines, but just go and do it.
But do you think that drivers now cop instant feedback from socials and online? Do you think that's where the main element of not wanting to engage in those rivalries comes from? Because a lot of them use the platform for the rivalry, and then the minute that a media or someone else picks up on it or flames the fire a little bit, they don't want to know about it. So it's kind of like you can't have your cake and eat it here. If you want the sport on the whole to grow, you kind of need to cop a few slings and arrows along the way.
Yeah, get some thicker skin, I say. No,
Yeah,
so like just got to, not really the right expression, but man up. Let's do something. Like see the bigger picture here. I think those guys that are very cemented don't need to stress about losing their drive if they do something. The team's got to have their back. The bigger picture's got to have their back. But yeah, like the fact that we haven't had someone have a half a punch on in 20 years, or the Russell Ingall Scaife thing, that's 22 years ago. We need new highlights. We need new versions of those guys, getting a bit of mongrel in them, as Russell Ingall would say, and
But
bring back the entertainment.
There. But the mongrel is there. They just don't want to go on and with it and through with it.
Well, I think of the current crop, there's probably 2 or 3 guys that I reckon have the right amount of mongrel in them, and that's Brodie. Cam Waters has definitely got that in him.
Yep.
And I think Ryan Wood has definitely got the potential at the moment, the way that he has been, which I think is a good thing. At the end of the day, any successful race car driver needs that element. Mongrel might not be the right word, but you've got to have that killer instinct. And I think there's a lot of guys on the grid that don't necessarily have that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing here is that this is an important one for Supercars too, on how they present the sport marketing-wise moving forward here. But they kind of have to pin it on the 5 or 6 guys, because right now there's 15 guys that the general Jobo on the street does not and will not know anytime soon. So you've got to take probably the fact that the next 10 years of championships are going to be contended between Will Brown, Brock Feeney, Brodie Kostecki, Matt Payne, Cam Waters. They're kind of your core 5 or 6. Ryan Wood in the mix too. They're the ones you've got to promote all the time. Promotion is not about giving everyone a go. It's about putting the biggest elements and the biggest news and the biggest people and the biggest potential stars on the biggest stage to push forward. And clearly Chaz Mostert plays into that, and a bit of Dave Reynolds in the background too. But trying to give everyone a go is not the play here, because until they win some races or become someone, you can't do much with them.
No.
So you've got to go with the guys who are going to be running at the front.
Yeah, no good pumping up the guy that's running 20th every week. Nobody's really respectfully interested in that, are they? So
not yet.
Yeah,
no.
But I guess I'll backtrack to the point. And you were a young journalist at the time when if you talk about Ambrose and Murphy, or Ambrose and Scaife, Russell Ingall in amongst all that, Ingall and Scaife, you didn't have to go looking for those stories. They happened in front of you, didn't they?
No, but the other thing that happened at the time, James, that doesn't happen anymore, is that in that era, and I'm talking early to mid-2000s, and when I was on the side of a public relations, so I did the PR for Kmart Racing, that time that Marcus came marching down the pit lane at the Gold Coast and gave Rick Kelly a gobful after that brake test situation with he and Greg Murphy. And at the time, media work by team public relations and manufacturer public relations were planting stories, were pushing things out there, telling journos this, telling them that. Race teams and manufacturers now don't tend to have media people. They have social media people. They put their story out on their socials, and that's kind of the limit of it. Yes, some of them do a better job to be able to pick up a phone and tell you something on the quiet, or hey, this is coming, or keep an eye on this. But we live very much in a world now of embargoed press releases for even the most trivial of things that aren't massive news. Whereas back in the day, an embargoed release, which means here's the information ahead of time. You've got to keep it under wraps till X time on X date. I mean, the big one that stands out was Craig Lowndes moving to Ford. That was massive news at the time. That was under embargo. Here's the photos, here's the words, here's the info, can't go out until this time. Now, any bit of news that you get from a race team is embargoed. So it's taken away that chase. A lot of that chase has come out of media and that type of thing. So we need to find a bit of a way back to that. But I think the teams have a bit of a role to play in all this too, to actually actively, well, what is promotion of your driver these days? Is it, oh, we just did a nice video on socials, and you go, okay, we might all have a little giggle in our industry, but unless it goes out into the mainstream, it's not really doing what we need it to do.
Yeah, and I think you've got to reinvigorate it a bit. Like every year, someone goes to Darwin and jumps in that crocodile thing and blah, blah, blah. It's always the same stuff.
Story, isn't
yeah,
it?
it's all good, but it's the same. So do something where, I don't know, maybe two of them are doing something closer to a crocodile.
What, two with crocodiles?
Or get them out of the safety cage and put them on the bank or something. I don't know, like do something different, because unfortunately it becomes rinse and repeat, and no one gets an opportunity to express their personality or, get into a bit of grief or spur up the rivalry. So, I think in that particular instance, that comes back to the teams, that comes back to the sport of supercars, and pick the people that you're promoting and don't just tick the boxes. Old school journalism. I got to grow up, and you worked for Tim Plastic Pemberton.
Yep.
Now, this is Brock's longtime PR guy, and he just thought outside the square.
Yep.
He was the one that dressed the drivers up in silly things and did
gladiator outfits.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what you need to do. Unfortunately, a lot of that, like you've said, Noons, and I shouldn't use the word lazy because people are still working, but they're not chasing stories. They're not chasing that extra yard that you used to have to do. You used to have to get in the newspapers or get on the 6 o'clock news to keep your manufacturer happy, because there was no, sort of minor publications back then. It was major or nothing. So you had to do something differently. And those guys like Plastic and Gerald McDormand, yourself, all those people built relationships to create the story. So that's what I mean. There's a lot of ingredients here, right? And I think just doing a basic social media video and sending it to a distribution list or whatever, like that just doesn't take it anymore. Like I love watching Cam Waters and Randall do their pre-event videos. They're taking the mickey out of themselves. They're taking the mickey out of their team. They're taking the mickey out of supercars, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's just social media.
Yeah, it's great content, but it's not making it outside our boundary lines of supercars and motorsport.
And they're happy with that, though. It's just a little conservative approach. The little window of supercars fans see it and everyone has a chuckle, but some of that stuff and some of the minds and thoughts that go into that should be spread out far and wide in the mainstream media. And let's get these guys. They're funny buggers, some of them, They
actually have a lot of personalities that disappear when the camera comes on. Yep. And that's just the way that it is for some people. But do we need to perhaps, you said we've got to change it up a little bit, do we need to have a beer stop wherever anybody conks out and retires? Because Chaz Mostert stopping for a beer at Bathurst took supercars racing to the mainstream in a way that no other moment of that race or any other race during the year managed to do. It's almost like you do have to script some of this stuff, or at least create the possibility for things to unfold. And it's the go viral type of situation now. But people will be talking about that who aren't supercars fans for such a very long time because he went and did it. And some people said, "Oh, you shouldn't go and have a beer now. He's out of the race. The car's cooked. It was over and out." So there's a lot to play in all of this. There's a lot that everyone can have a part of here. But we're in a really unique situation where we've seen NASCAR have this the last few years, where a lot of their star drivers have moved on and a lot of young drivers starting to work their way through. So everybody's got a role to play. Everyone can do their bit. You won't make the stars instantly overnight, but we need some major moments to help move those ones up the order to take the place of those that we will lose at the end of this year. But there's so many elements to this. It's not a simple fix. It's a long thing, but everyone can do their bit. But it's a topic to keep chewing over another time, another day here on The Undercut.